K2FQ Riverside and K293CF Moreno Valley.
That's a big update, really big.
Awesome, awesome. Okay. So with that being said, go ahead. Thank you for coming, Mary. We're glad to have you. Go ahead and get started.
All right, no problem. So on April 26th, I got a Facebook message from one of Johnny's friends, and it was a picture of what we assumed was Brian's 2004 black Range Rover getting pulled out of the river by the casino. And then I immediately called you and Michelle, and you said something crazy. What did you say?
I said, hey, by any chance, was there a body in that vehicle? Because I was like, that would make a lot of sense because we haven't seen Brian in a long time.
And Brian is the one who has a warrant out for possible second-degree murder.
For Johnny.
For Johnny Beckham.
For murdering Johnny. Okay, go ahead, Mary. Yeah, so I said, yeah, was there a body in that vehicle?
You act like you said that so calm. You did not. She's panicked. No,
was I panicked? I don't remember.
You were very surprised. I think it was more of a surprise. But yeah, I didn't even think about that at that time because immediately right after I got the message, I called you, and then a couple minutes later, you told me recently that we were still on the phone, but a couple minutes after we talked about that, I got a text from my oldest brother, and he said that he got a call or a text from the detectives saying that they found Brian's Range Rover and that there is a body in it. And then they mentioned that they were going to do an autopsy because they're not sure who the body belongs to. So then I told you about that, and I know you were at work. You were trying to be quiet, but yeah, go ahead.
I pretty much lost it. Yeah. So I'm looking at the picture because you sent me the picture, and also the person who sent it to you, Johnny's friend, sent it to me as well. But I was on my break and I didn't look at it. I was talking to my daughter Danae. So then when I got the phone call from you, and you sent me the picture, I was like, oh my gosh, because we're looking at this picture, both you and I think I called you or you called me, but we're looking at it and we're seeing this Range Rover that looks identical to the Range Rover that's missing, and that, that was in Brian's driveway, and that we were assuming Brian came and took after Johnny had passed on July 29th. The Range Rover went missing on July 7th or 8th, I believe. But at any rate, one thing that was pointed out on the Facebook post was someone said, oh, look at that bad wiring job. And it was a trailer hitch and the wires were just hanging down. And so when you sent me the picture, I was like, oh my gosh, look at the wiring. But you also noticed some other stuff with the vehicle.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed that the taillights, the picture was just, it was crazy to see. Like, the picture, by the time I got it, they already had the Range Rover pulled on the beach. It looked, we were like, that has to be Brian's. Also, why is it in the river, you know?
Yeah.
But it was like covered in mud by the time it got onto the land. All the windows were rolled down. The front driver's seat, I actually zoomed in for the first time today, and I realized that the front driver's seat is like leaned back. Oh. And I don't know if I mentioned, but the taillights were missing. There was no taillights, and anything that could be opened was opened. Like the tailgate was open, the windows were down. It was really, I don't know, it made me question some things.
It was pretty strange, and when I found out, I kind of just lost it at work. I'm sitting at my desk and I'm just like, my desk, there's lots of people around that can see and hear me. So I'm just like going, oh my gosh, when I found out there was a body in there, and I got emotional, and I got up to walk, because that's what I do when I get emotional, I walk. So I got up to walk and to get out of there because I knew I was creating a scene, but I couldn't help myself. And some of my coworkers were like, are you okay? And it was kind of embarrassing. But, I mean, this is not
Well, that probably wasn't the best place for me to break that kind of news. I didn't even think about that.
Well,
I didn't have time to really process it.
Don't worry, because she called me while I was at work on my actual work phone. She asked to talk to me, to a coworker, and she was like, and she told me what happened. And I'm like, seriously? Like, that's so sad. Like, and then I'm just sitting there like, I'm working though. I have to go. And I had to hang up the work phone.
Well, I wanted you to know right away, and I didn't want you to find out some other way, and I couldn't get a hold of you. So so I did that. But
Oh,
this wasn't how we wanted it to end. And so, in that
No.
way, it was sad. I mean, it was sad for his family. I was sad that it ended in this way. And it was confusing to all of us. I mean, we had more questions than answers, and we still do.
We're never going to get those answers either.
We don't know that, but
right. That's
we feel
how
that.
I felt when Aunt Michelle asked me how I felt about it. Originally, I was, like you said, shocked. I was super shocked, and then it kind of grew into frustration after you asked me how I felt.
Right.
I realized that I am frustrated because I don't know if we will ever get those answers,
Right.
Yeah, it's just more questions. Go on. Sorry.
Yeah, well, that's assuming that it is his body. We're not sure. We're still waiting on an autopsy. So since we were still waiting on an autopsy, we decided not to post it on social media or anything like that, just to kind of keep it in the family and let the family of the deceased have time to process it, once they get that information. But, small towns, it started circulating within the next day all over social media.
Right.
So since the vehicle was found on the reservation, it was pulled out of the Colorado River right there at the casino, literally down there on the casino beach. So originally, since it was on the reservation, Crit was going to take over the autopsy. But I guess since they're not sure if the person that was found in the vehicle belongs to or is a native person, they put the autopsy responsibilities onto the FBI. So that's kind of relieving, kind of gives us another,
Avenue.
Yeah, it gives us just somebody who's not connected to the case or, doesn't know much and just can be very honest with what they find.
More objective, a little more objective, probably, is what
Yeah,
we're hoping for that, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
And then on May 4th, Parker Live released an online article, and it stated, it was quoted that it will take a little while due to decomposition resulting in obtaining possible dental records or DNA records. And that was quoted from Detective Johnson. And that's the detective that's been working Johnny's case. So we're not sure when, it's been almost a month, and we haven't really heard anything back about the autopsy, so we're not sure when we'll hear about it.
Did he say how long it would be to anybody?
Well, we heard from someone that they spoke with, the other detective, Harrington, and that he had said it could take up to 2 years. Now,
which I think is pretty extreme.
That's of course we don't know for sure, but that's what we were told. But
they also said that about the bloody clothes.
Thank you. And so it does it does connect to the bloody clothes, the same thing. It was like, I think he said 2.5 years. We might know something about the bloody clothes, which really that doesn't make any sense to us. I mean, obviously DNA does not take that long. Same thing with dental records.
The bloody clothes were confirmed to be certain people.
According to the police report, the sheriff's report, yes.
And
people have claimed those clothes.
And there hasn't been any investigation on that, right?
Right. Go on, Miriam, sorry.
No, you're fine. And you would think with the murder investigation that bloody clothes that are said to be related to, certain people, that they would expedite that, especially now considering there was another dead body that may be connected to. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You would think that they would put. So I don't know. I've heard that the bloody clothes should have been done within, a couple days. But I've heard that the autopsy should be done fairly quickly as well.
Yeah, but also you have to remember too that not all the people that were even there were interviewed, or people that.
That's true.
I mean,
people that were there have tried to contact the police, and even people who have information now have tried to contact the FBI and
that were there at Johnny when Johnny got shot.
Yeah, people that showed up after Johnny was shot. Those people.
But the people that know information and they still don't want to interview them.
People who feel like they have information regarding Brian and the truck and things of that nature.
Like who has been interviewed? Nobody, right?
There's still some stuff that no.
There's been not one person interviewed.
Well,
during a murder investigation, which I think is just crazy.
Well, I think the neighbor who called 911 was interviewed.
The one that heard a shot.
But yeah, that's about it. I think that's
Mm-hmm.
about it. I mean, they talked to people that night and then they just kind of left it at that.
Right.
Which is
They haven't even interviewed the person whose bloody clothes the house the
No, they have.
Oh, really?
No, they have. Yeah. They have.
And
Yeah, I've heard different things. I think there's a lot of stuff that they need, or I don't know about a lot of stuff, but I think there's some stuff that they obviously need to keep from the public. Therefore, they're probably going to keep from us just to, make sure that it doesn't get out. It might be detrimental to the case. But I feel like we need something more than what we've been giving, because as of right now, it does seem.
Right. And I mean, and what I was going to say earlier is they told me, the police officers, or rather the detectives told me, they have a card with Johnny's blood on it. They have these clothes that could potentially have Johnny's blood on them. So how hard is it to
Right, so they
match?
have something to compare.
So how hard? I mean, you have a body that has teeth in its head, and you have dentists, and you have dental records. How hard is it to compare these things?
Right.
So even if his skin fell off in the water, and his hair and all this stuff, you still have teeth. So I'm sorry. 2 years,
and underneath
2.5 years.
The cold water, it's been cold under there. It decomposes. Bodies decompose a lot less fast in cold water than they do in hot. So,
and there's a lot of things in it. The body was in a vehicle, and that can contribute to like current. And actually, the spot that the vehicle was found in, it's a no wake zone. So, there's not much of a current. Actually, when we do the annual tube floats and we float down that way, it's really hard to get to where you need to go because there isn't a current pulling you.
Right.
So I'm hoping that has a lot to do with the state of the body that was in.
Right.
Interesting. Very interesting. I didn't know all that. And I guess we should probably mention that it was some kayakers who found the body.
Correct. Yes, they reached out and sent us some photos to confirm that they were the ones that found the body.
Yeah, and it wasn't
there's
too
water
far.
receding.
It wasn't too far under the water.
It's because the water's receding right now.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, and it's not too deep in some of those areas to begin with. There's actually a sandbar not too far away from that area.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
I don't think it went too deep into, from the shore. I don't think it got too far in there either.
It's crazy nobody's seen it the whole time, too, though.
Well, it's been cold. Maybe people haven't been out, and it just started to warm up.
Yeah.
People started going out onto the onto the river.
Yeah.
I mean, kayaking and stuff. I would think it's probably why. But I mean, I guess we're thinking like suicide. That's a really awful way to go.
I know. I mean,
it just doesn't. It seems
doesn't make
far-fetched.
sense.
Why do you want to torture yourself?
Suicide seems like there's a lot of opportunity to not follow through with it. If you're gonna. I mean, you can undo a seatbelt. There's not much you can do to keep yourself committed to that.
Right.
Going into the water. So.
Right. Yeah. And there's been a lot of speculations, and we've heard different things, but we're not going to share the hearsay stuff that we've heard. But we'll just say that there's some speculation as to what happened, but we don't really know all the details. We don't have enough details to say.
Exactly. But we would love to hear your guys' input, and if you've been following the last 3 podcast episodes, we'd love to hear what you think, because I mean, we're trying to piece everything together, but there's obviously a lot of stuff that we missed.
Mary, I hadn't asked you this, but how do you feel about maybe posting the photos of the vehicle that we received, and then maybe also the photos we received from the kayakers, and then any of our followers on Facebook can see those and they can give us their opinion as well?
I don't mind. There's certain photos that I will post, but there's one photo that I won't post due to the person who sent it to me.
Okay.
She was sent it, and she doesn't want anybody to get in trouble for her taking that photo.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I understand. Okay.
But we do have photos of it from when it was in Brian's driveway. We have photos of it when it got pulled out. We have. What else did you say? I'm sorry.
Oh, the kayakers, the pictures from the kayakers.
Oh, yeah,
so you can just see it under the surface of the water.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I haven't heard, whether they sent it to me very willingly. So,
okay.
I mean, without me asking. So I would assume that they're okay with it.
Okay. Okay, that's good.
Also, I just wanted to mention that I mean, the family of, the deceased are really in our prayers. This is never something that we wanted to happen, especially if it is Brian.
Right.
It's such a sad story all around.
Yeah.
I went home and I cried.
I cried that day when
I was
when
crying.
I found out.
I mean, it's just sad. It's not something we wanted. We weren't looking for him to get hurt. We don't even know for sure what happened.
Right.
Exactly. And we would prefer answers over that one any day.
And we don't want his family to be hurting, just because we are.
Right. No, you're right.
Exactly. And they had nothing to do, as far as I know, they had nothing to do with Johnny's murder.
Right.
So.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it poses more questions for us than it really does answers, and it's frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
We would rather have him alive and be able to answer to what happened. Because we've been speculating this entire time, right? We can only guess what happened.
Right. Even if there's certain evidence that comes up for or against him doing this or being an accident on purpose, whatever it is, we're still never going to know what he was doing at the time, what he was thinking, what was going on in the conversation between him and Johnny, and what was it an accident? Who did it? If anybody else was there, we don't know.
Right, but we do have some evidence to say that it looks like some people were there and they're just not telling, and there's a reason why people aren't telling. Right, there's definitely,
and there's also a lot of people writing us and giving us all different speculations, which is really hard for us because it's either them getting information from other people and then giving it to us, and we don't know what to believe.
Right. And we don't know who's trying to cover themselves or,
right, or trying to help us.
And we'll get a lot, of duplicate stories from different people, and we're wondering, like, is this a made-up story just because they want to, make sure that they're safe, or I don't know.
Right.
Yeah. Everybody's a suspect until...
Exactly. It makes you suspect everybody.
Yep.
Right. Well, that's true. It really does, unfortunately. Yeah. So I guess all that to say is that's our update for today. Do you have anything else to add, Mary?
Just that, I think and I hope that it's clear that we are not going to give up on, Johnny or justice for him.
We're still gathering our details.
We pour ourselves into this a lot.
We're still investigating. We're still gathering our details, and there's still a lot of details to be had, and we're learning new information regarding Johnny's case, because we're not giving up on Johnny's case. The FBI is working on the body and the vehicle. They're not working on Johnny's case, and we're hoping and praying that once they determine who the body is, if it is Brian, they don't close Johnny's case, and they don't just give up on Johnny's case.
Right.
And if they do, that's a whole different thing, because we're still not going to give up. We're not going to give up until we're satisfied and everything makes sense.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
So everyone out there listening, please go ahead and check out the Facebook within the next day or so. We will have the photos of the Range Rover, and we're happy to hear any of your opinions. Put them in the comments section. We don't want to hear a lot of hearsay though and gossip. Please keep that.
But
stuff
if you
out
do
of there.
have any information,
but if you have, if you have details that are private, somebody's name or whatever, please message us in private. We don't want to put stuff out there to taint anyone's reputation.
Right.
And we've tried really hard to make sure if somebody wants to stay anonymous, we will do that, even towards, to the detectives. I really want to respect people's boundaries and what they do and don't want to say so, or, want to be connected to.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Yes, integrity is important. Okay, thank you.
Oh, and you can look us up on Justice for Johnny Beckham.
Yeah, not Johnny Depp, because we're getting a lot of new people.
Oh, are we?
Yes, there's a Justice for Johnny, and it's for Johnny Depp page. So people are adding us and trying to get us to approve pictures of Johnny Depp. I'm like, wait.
Well, I was wondering, I'm like, we're getting a lot of new people all of a sudden. And I was telling Alyssa, and I'm like, I don't know.
And Michelle's welcoming everybody.
That's what she said. She said that in the car. She's like, oh my gosh, and I'm welcoming all of them.
I'm a total nerd. I didn't I didn't make the connection.
It makes sense though. I see
Yeah.
Justice for Johnny Depp or Justice for Johnny all over the place, and it just it's such a weird feeling, you know?
Right. And Beckham is Beckham, by the way.
By the way. Okay. Thank you so much, Mary. We love you. We always appreciate having you on. And when there's another update, we will have you on again.
Love you.
Love you. Thank you guys so much.
Bye, Mary.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Okay. So that was really good.
Yeah.
It's a confusing time, but it was a good.
It's just sad. It's really sad.
Yeah. It's very sad. It's a sad ending so far.
Wasn't expecting that. I mean, we've contemplated maybe that could be an option, him not being here with us, which is why they haven't found him. But we really were holding on to the hope that he was hiding somewhere. Somebody was hiding him because he didn't want to, talk to the police. But yeah, now that that part is over, it's kind of, it's frustrating. It's sad.
Well, it begs the question, like, if no one's really heard from him since that night.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it just begs the question. I guess because of the Range Rover and everything else, I guess he had to still be alive after that night. But I don't know. It's confusing. It's all confusing.
Right. But he didn't necessarily have to go get the Range Rover himself. So we just never know.
Somebody could have stole it. Someone could have stole it. Lots of stealing was going on after Johnny died. Lots of people were stealing. Okay.
And his dog was left in his house. I just thought that was really weird too.
Yeah.
For days.
There was a dog. Yeah. And it was picked up at the pound after that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I guess.
Right, yeah. Let's get into your story now.
Okay, so I have a little bit of time. And I just want to apologize because last week we were actually broadcasting from home and there was a little bit of issue with the sound. And so sorry about that, guys. I'm going to go into my story now. Alyssa was a little sick, but she's good now. And so I'm going to go into part of my story and see how it goes. Last week I felt like it was a little boring because I didn't have Alyssa chiming in. So I'm glad she's here.
I had the kids screaming in the background on the phone, so I had to keep it on mute the whole time.
Yeah, it was kind of loud in my house.
And
so I was hiding in the bedroom.
every time I took it off mute, it would scream. It would go.
Yeah, there were some issues. Okay, so I guess the first part of my story, I kind of told everyone about my childhood and how it was growing up in a family where there was some people who had substance abuse disorder. And now I just want to go into my adulthood, I guess, is where we'll go with this. I graduated in 1988, and I was working as a box girl at Alpha Beta.
This isn't necessarily adulthood. You're still 17, 18,
right?
Well,
I was 18, so I felt like I was all grown up. Okay. So maybe people don't know what Alpha Beta is, but it was a grocery store back in the day. So I worked there, and then I went to work at Food for Less. And then in 1990, I met a friend, and her name was Cindy. And I was dating this guy, Jeff, and he was from Oklahoma. And I had been dating for 2 years. And I started to realize what a pain he was and how controlling he was. He didn't even want me to go hang out with Cindy at her apartments to swim. And I just one day said, this is ridiculous, and I broke up with him, which was really good timing because then I went to the apartments, and in May 1990, at the swimming pool, I met your dad, Danny. And he was there hanging out with his friend Jeff, and they were, swimming or whatever. Danny was shy, so he was kind of sitting in the corner. Well, I immediately liked him and was attracted to him, but his friend Jeff came over and started talking to us, and I think his friend Jeff kind of liked me. But
is it different Jeff or the same Jeff?
Same Jeff.
Didn't you just say you were dating Jeff for 2 years?
Oh, different Jeff than I was dating. Good point, Alyssa. Good point. Much cuter Jeff, to be honest. But anyways, so Danny was sitting in the corner. Jeff invited us to come back to hang out with him the next day at his apartment. Well, as I was leaving, I had asked Jeff, who's that guy in the corner? And he said, oh, that's Danny. So as I was leaving and walking past him, I said, goodbye, Danny. See you later. And he said, hopefully sooner. And it was so cute to me because I was young and dumb. And I was like, oh, how cute. Okay, so anyways, the next day I tried to go back to the apartments and my mom didn't let me. So I wasn't allowed, so I was really mad and upset. But then I was like, whatever. I got over it relatively quickly. I was used to disappointment, used to my mother telling me what to do. I was only 18. So maybe a week or so, or I would just keep hearing all these things from Cindy back and forth, oh, I seen Danny. He asked about you. Then I'd go there and I wouldn't see him, and his friend Jeff would say, oh, he went home with some women last night. We went out, blah, 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 to Club Metro, and he went home with a bunch of women that are teachers at my school or whatever. And I was like, oh, God. So I was Jeff liked me and Cindy liked Danny, and it was they were working to keep us apart, So it was interesting. But it made me afraid of him a little bit, to be honest. And then one day I finally came over there to the apartments, and I was supposed to be there to meet with Cindy, Danny, and Jeff, and I got there late, and I saw this cute little boy, and I had my red 65 Mustang. I had was actually a 64 and a half, if you understand that, but it was a 64 and a half Mustang painted red. My brother painted it for me. I paid about $400 for it. Should have kept it. And my brother Jody, he dropped like the slowest engine he could find from pick apart in the car. It was like so slow. People would come by me and rev their engines up. And one day I was in the car with my brother, and he says, sis, they're revving their engine at you. And I said, I know. It's the strangest thing. I think they're flirting with me. He died laughing. He's like, they want to race you? I was like, well, where am I going to go? This is a straight 6. This ain't going anywhere. But anyway.
Well, just a fun fact. The first speeding ticket that was ever given in 92 was for going 8 miles per hour. The speed limit at the time was 2.
Wow.
I just read
Thank
that
you,
today.
Sheldon
Okay,
Cooper.
Go on.
Okay. Anyhow, okay, so now I'm lost.
You were
in my
driving
story.
to go see
Oh,
him?
yeah. So I drove my Mustang up there to the apartments, and this cute little boy, he came up to me, he said, is that your Mustang? And I said, yeah. And he said, my brother Danny has waited all day for you. And I was like, oh. So then I was like, okay, I got to go talk to this guy. So then I met Danny, and I really fell for him. I mean, it's strange when you really connect with someone. This is the first time in my life that I really connected with someone, and I really was just like feeling like I knew him forever. It's almost like you get hit with all these emotions, and it's like being hit with a train or something. It's just like very like, this is meant to be. It felt very fated. It was just different for me than anything I ever experienced before. So we got married, and we had 3 daughters, but we got married in 1991, which was 11 months after meeting. We were in Harvest Church. He was in drug rehab there, which really scared me because he had just gotten out of jail. These are all red flags, women out there listening. He just got out of jail, and he was in rehab.
Not necessarily.
At Harvest. Not necessarily. You're right. I shouldn't say it like that. That was kind of rude. No, because he never used drugs or went to jail again the entire 23 years we were married.
Besides...
well, he started taking benzos. So,
and
yeah.
Vicodin. So.
Oh, yeah. Apparently. I didn't know about all that. But at any rate, so he asked me to marry him at Harvest after only knowing him for maybe 2 months while we were sitting in the balcony. And I was like, this guy's crazy. I really thought he was crazy. So then I just ignored him. And I kind of laughed. And then we went outside, and on the way out in the parking lot, he said, I was serious about what I said up there. And I was like, what? And he's like, I want to marry you. And I was like, okay. He's like, do you want to marry me? And I was like, okay. Still thinking he was crazy, but still knowing I was going to marry this guy. So then within a month, he decided he didn't just want to get married. He wanted to have a baby. And he starts trying to convince me to have a baby, which freaked me out a lot. And he talked me into it. So I stopped taking my birth control pills.
Ta-da!
And then and then Alyssa came. And then I told my sister, which was a bad idea because I'm pretty sure she told my mom. Because all of a sudden my mom's writing me this long letter. First, she's accusing me of trying to get pregnant, and I'm lying out my teeth about it, saying, no, I'm not. But I had this in my mind. I'm 19, right? And I had this in my mind, like, I'm getting kind of old. I need to have a baby. Like, I literally thought that. That's how dumb I was. Because my sister at this point, I think, had 2 kids. My mom had, I think, 3 by the time she was, like,
22
or something crazy. So I started thinking, like, I'm kind of getting old. Maybe I should do this, and something just felt urgent about the whole thing. It was a really weird time in my life. So my mom writes me this letter telling me, like,
I had my first at 25.
I know. I was glad you waited.
I know. Me too.
My mom writes me this long letter, and it was really kind of sad, where she's just like telling me, I know you're trying to get pregnant. There were so many times throughout my life where I wanted to give stuff to you and your siblings, your brother and sisters, and I didn't have money to give you everything I wanted to give you, and I had to sew Halloween costumes, and I had to do all this. And it made me sad and cry. And then, of course, the other part of my brain was like, I had a happy childhood. I don't care if I'm poor. I don't care. I was young and immature. So anyways, I ended up getting pregnant and having Alyssa. And then I had
a shotgun wedding.
I was 4 months pregnant. And I had Alyssa, and then I had Danae. We had 3 girls, Danae, and then we had Kaylee. We found out pretty quick, though, that Danny had a bad temper. I was probably about 5 months pregnant with Alyssa, and we lived across the street from the 7-Eleven on La Sierra Avenue. And my brother-in-law went over there to get a soda or something, and he didn't come back. So my sister, who was dating him, at the time, my brother's best friend, she happens to see that he's in a fist fight with somebody in the middle of the 7-Eleven. So my brother, Jody, who's his best friend, takes off running over there. Danny takes off, and I take off, which was really dumb because I'm like 6 months pregnant. So we get into the store.
You get more and more pregnant as the story goes on.
Oh, maybe I was 5 months pregnant before. I don't know. I was pregnant.
Joking. Okay,
Stop it. So
you run over there.
We run over there, and all I see is like my brother-in-law on the ground with this big guy on top of him. My brother clotheslines him, and the guy goes like kind of rolls off of him, and then the lady that worked there, Jeanette, she's like, get up on the counter. So I'm getting up on the counter, pregnant, and she's like trying to hold me. And then Danny, this guy yells at your dad and says like, why are two guys ganging up on him? And all of a sudden Danny just cocks his hand back and punches him so hard in the face that his eyes roll back. And I never seen anything like this. Like literally he went down like, dun, 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 like a ton of bricks, just really like in slow motion. And his eyes just roll back and the guy was out. And I was like, why did you just punch that guy? I was like, I didn't understand. But then all of a sudden, like, my dad comes running in, and the other guy who's fighting with my brother-in-law, my brother, is getting the best of him, and my dad's huge, so it's like thunk, thunk. You could hear thunk, thunk. And then he hits a rack of 2-liter sodas, and they go flying, and he just starts punching the guy all the way into the back room. They're just having it out. But what came out of that whole story is that your dad had a horrible temper, and and my brother would tell people like, yeah, just be careful with him because he's crazy. I mean, we got into a lot of fights. There were a lot of fights in my family with people, my brother and stuff like that. I was always like the mediator. But yeah, I think that when somebody just asks a question, we don't usually just punch them in the face and knock them out. So that was kind of different. But anyway, so I first saw that, and then at one point, that was after you were born. Well, before you were born, your dad told me this story about somebody in his family, this woman, who he couldn't stand her because she was always lying about him and his siblings. And he told me that she accused him of sexually abusing someone in the family, a younger girl, and how much he hated her because she was a liar, and, and how that made him feel so bad and like he couldn't be around that family member. And so after you were born, that person called me on the phone and told me, the same story. So I hung up, and then I told my mother, and she said, well, you need to call his father, and you need to ask him. So I called your grandpa, and he said that he had heard the story, and he also said that he had been accused also of doing something with a neighborhood girl, and just for me to, like, keep it in the back of my mind. And I was, like, so confused. I'm like, but first he asked me if somebody he said the name of the person. He's like, well, did you talk to so-and-so? Who told you this? Did so-and-so tell you this? And the person he was saying was a different woman. So I'm like, huh. So I didn't really make the connection that maybe there were two women saying that he had done this, until years later.
Because he had done it with more than just one person, obviously.
Right. It took me years to figure that out because I was like, okay, this family's crazy is what I thought. Like, they're all crazy, and I don't know what to think. And then, of course, Danny said his dad was a liar after I hung up the phone with him, and I told him what was said, and maybe his dad was doing something, and we should keep you away from his dad, and all this kind of stuff. So that's kind of, all that to say is, like, this marriage started off pretty rocky, and yeah. So it was kind of like, I felt like I was like almost like a mother figure in this relationship because I was like always pushing him because he was kind of lazy. He was good at everything, and that's the sad part. I'm not good at anything. Well, except talking. I'm good at talking. But he was good at everything he tried, literally everything he tried. But he didn't want to try anything. He just wanted to sit around and play Xbox or play video games. So I was kind of like in this role of a mother. And so that was hard. Like even when we divorced, I felt like I lost a child or something. Like it was weird. But anyways, he was always afraid that I was going to leave him because his mom and dad divorced and his mom wasn't in his life. So it was always this fear. So I think that's what really held us together for 23 years was his fear of abandonment. Mm-hmm. It's weird, the dysfunction and the level of dysfunction mm-hmm. that can be in relationships like that. You can start to see it after being in it for a while. It was like, okay, I'm kind of like his mom. He's kind of like my dad with his horrible temper and his explosive disorder,
Now we're talking Freud.
Yeah, it was very Freudian. In fact, he literally, and it's funny you say that, because literally we were in a fight, and one time he was like, "You don't understand. When I get this mad, Mom," and I was like, "Wait, what?" I'm like, "I think you need to figure out who you're mad at. Is it me or your mom? My name's Michelle. My name's not Mom." You know, it was just kind of like, okay, that was different. But that's kind of what happens sometimes. You got to work that stuff out, I guess. I don't know. But he used to be a big, huge flirt, so that caused a lot of fights. So we were fighting a lot because he was flirting a lot. And there were two girls in particular, and we'll talk about them later. But eventually, he got really good about hiding it, or better at hiding it. And so eventually, he kind of went underground with the flirting. He realized that I was smart, and he started hiding it more and more. And I also got to a place where I was just like, what happens in the dark will come to light, and I'm tired of this. I'm tired of like checking his phone. I'm tired of all this and that. I can't deal with this drama anymore.
You guys did it forever.
We did it for a long time.
And the fighting, the constant fighting.
The fighting.
Oh my gosh, it was just ridiculous.
Right. Okay.
And then the constant making up after. It's just like, geez, I find you in the laundry room.
Oh, shut up! We're not even. Why would you even go there? Whatever. So we had a very passionate relationship with the fighting and the making up. So, anyways, but at one point, like after being married for about 23 years, I realized like throughout the marriage there were times where he seemed like he was wavering and he was kind of unhappy, right? So after like 23 years is when I noticed it was like he seemed like unhappy and different, kind of different, you know. And I had gone on a girls' trip to Laughlin with some friends, and we had friends in common. You know, Danny and we have friends who their husbands were friends with, our wives and husbands. So we were all friends together. So one of the girls told me, Danny told, you know, their husband or their guy friend that he wants to leave you. And I was like, what? You know, it was really strange. And it was throughout the marriage. And I'm just saying this too for women listening. Keep an eye out for these signs. Throughout the marriage, people were always telling me stuff, and then I'd ask him, and he would say they were lying. So if somebody's always saying, hey, they're lying.
He gaslighted you a lot.
It was
always
a lot.
Made you think you were crazy.
It was a lot of gaslighting. He would say I was crazy if I would say he was flirting with someone.
And you'd start believing it after time. Like you feel it. You feel your
do.
gut feeling.
Well, he would even convince you girls that I was crazy.
Well, yeah, because we were young.
Yeah.
So
He would convince my daughters I was crazy. He would tell people.
But you were a little crazy.
Oh yeah, I definitely was.
But that's because he pushed you to a certain point to where you were like losing it.
And but
like,
people don't believe that. Like when you say that, people don't believe that.
Right.
Like I could say that to a billion people, and they would still think it was me.
Right.
I would say, but he did this or he did that.
Yeah.
And I know, and I feel it. I would feel things. But people don't understand when you have intuition and you have instinct. They think you're nuts. They're like, yeah, sure.
I don't
sure
even
you
think
feel
they,
it.
I think they just want to believe that. They don't want to believe.
People want to believe the good about other people.
Especially men. It's true.
Yeah, even women want to believe that men are and nobody wants to be considered the B word or the crazy person. You know what I mean?
The crazy person, especially.
So some women will be like, well, I don't get jealous. I just think it's ridiculous that you get jealous. Well, then you're kind of naive, I think, because jealousy is also there to protect a relationship. That's how I feel. I don't think you should be over the top with it, but God is a jealous God. Why? Because he wants to protect his relationship with you from other things, other idols. So there's a reason for that emotion. If you're having that emotion, you should, consider what's going on. But you can't make yourself crazy with it. So by 23 years of marriage, I was done making myself crazy with it.
Right.
Right? So, I mean, there was even like a conversation one time with my brother-in-law where they were talking about some new girl that worked at their work, or someone was, and he said, oh, don't talk about her in front of Michelle and my sister because they'll get jealous. And I was like, what? No, I won't. I was like, you know what? Whatever is going on in the dark will come to light. I don't care. And then
they put these narratives out there ahead of time so that people can already see you in that light.
Yes. Mm-hmm. And that's what was going on. And when I mentioned it to your dad, he was like, what do you mean you don't care? You don't care anymore? You don't, mm-hmm. And he wanted me to fight with him. He liked this game.
Right.
And that's when I realized it. Oh, he loves this ride. Right. He likes having women fight over him. He thinks that this makes him feel good. It's not that I'm crazy. It's that he's sick.
Yeah.
He's got an issue.
Mm-hmm.
So at any rate, after all that, he started acting even stranger. We had a fight one night, and he accused me of being with a younger guy. And I was like, what? And he got really descriptive about what I was supposed to have done with this younger guy. And I was like, wow, like none of this is true. But right out of my mouth came something that I wasn't even expecting. I said, so what younger girl that knows me are you trying to convince that I did these things so she'll do these things with you, or have you done this with her? And then I was like, he looked like I slapped him. He looked like, how did she know? And I was like, why did I even say that? But I just kept getting these vibes, you know, the universe, God, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it. I knew something wasn't right.
Right.
And so every morning I'd wake up and I would pray, like, feel bad, you know, thinking something was wrong. And I would pray like, okay, God, either if it's not true, let these feelings go away. But if it is true, then let them be more strong. Well, they kept getting stronger and stronger. So one morning I just started praying like, then tell me who. And there was this girl that was my nephew's best friend. Her name was Cassie. And when we first met her, she was probably 15 or 16.
My friend, too.
And Alyssa's friend. And
eventually.
and she, I could tell she had a little crush on him. And one day, like, we were leaving the swimming pool party, and she, like, walked past the car and, like, did this cute little, bye, Danny, with this little wave. And then he flirted right back at her, and I was like, what the heck?
She told me before that her and her friend told me before that, oh, your dad is so cute. He's so cute. I'm like, ew.
Yeah. And I didn't know that. But at any rate, so I was like, okay, that's kind of strange. And I asked him about it, and he denied it. And then there was another girl. Her name started with A. And she was, like, hanging out one day on the patio with him smoking.
She was my friend. She's, like, 14 at the time.
16.
She was younger than me. She was a year younger than me.
Oh, well, then she was probably 15. But they were outside on my patio smoking cigarettes together, and she's totally flirting with him. And I was like, you know, I don't want her around. I'm not comfortable. This isn't right. You know?
I didn't think anything like that at the time.
You didn't think so. You thought I was crazy. He thought I was crazy. He said I was crazy. You said I was crazy. Everybody thought I was crazy. But anyways, so when I prayed, those two names came in my head, Cassie and the person that started with an A. And I was like, okay, I believed the person that started with an A, but I didn't want to believe Cassie because she called me Aunt Michelle. She called him Uncle Danny. And we'd been around her for so many years, and she always had this upright kind of attitude, self-righteous kind of thing going with her. And I just didn't think she would do something like that. So I was really shocked. And so what I did was I lied. I called him on the phone and I lied. And I said, Cassie just wrote me on Facebook, and she told me there's something she needs to talk to me about. Is there anything you want to tell me? And immediately he started stuttering, like, I got to go. I got to get off the phone. I got to go. So I was like, okay, you got to go, whatever. I was still being naive, and I still didn't want to believe it. I went to work. Well, where I worked at a law firm with a non-marriage counselor, a divorce attorney. And
complete opposite.
And he, and he had asked if somebody could set up the towel rack in the bathroom, you know. And I asked your dad, and he had told me like a week before, I can't do that. I don't have time to do that. And he was angry about it. Well, I go to lunch, I come back, and I see his truck there in the parking lot. He's never been to my work before. He doesn't know any of these people. And he shows up, and I go in, and he's fixing the towel rack. And I'm like, oh, like, what are you doing here? And he immediately, like, he's like, just a minute. And he goes outside, and he's like mad at me, and he's saying in front of his coworker, like, yeah, you called me up and tell me to come over here right now, and I came down here and you weren't even here. And I'm like, I didn't call you. What are you talking about? And his friend's looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, what? And I didn't put it together until later that, like, not even until after we separated, really, that, like, he came over there to check up on the story about Cassie.
To gauge what you knew.
To gauge it. And then he started tickling me after that and was like, are you over this morning? You crazy? You're so crazy. And I was like, crazy like a fox. And then he's like laughing. And like within 2 weeks, I get an email on a Wednesday night. And at this point, there's been all this talk between he and I about lie detector. Okay, so we were like, let's do it. Let's take a lie detector, because you don't believe me. I don't believe you. He's accusing me of things, you know, and I'm like accusing him. So I set it up. I set up to go to a lie detector on Sunday. On the Wednesday before the lie detector, I get an email, and I think that this thing about Cassie set off this email. I really do. I think this set off the whole chain of events. But I get this email from somebody by the name of Anthony Barnes. It says, the email is in the name Anthony Barnes 91. And it says, Danny effed Cassandra, thought you should know, everyone else does. So I'm like, oh, so he slept with Cassie. So I'm showing it to him, and we're yelling about it.
And then he drags me into it.
And then you walk in.
Well, he dragged me into it. He's like, oh, Alyssa, tell your mom that she's crazy, that I would never do this. And look at this email. This is a random guy. And you're like, Alyssa, look at this email. Why would somebody write that? And I remember it vividly. And then I was sitting on you guys' bed when I found out that what the email was. I remember that.
And you said, and the first things out of your mouth was like, Mom, Cassandra would never do this because my nephew was dating a Cassandra. And I said, it's not Cassandra, it's Cassie. And you said, nobody calls her Cassandra. Nobody calls Cassie Cassandra. And then you took your phone and you were doing something. And
I looked at email because back then you could look up. You can't do it now or maybe you can do it now. I don't know, but you could look up emails on Facebook search. So I went on Facebook search and I put the email in, and it popped up.
Yeah, it was linked to her cousin, and her name was Becca. And you said. You gasped
because Becca was always such an honest person, and every time I saw her, she always gave me a big hug and stuff, and she was so sweet, Christian girl. And so when the last time that I saw her was like a week before that, and I saw her at a grocery store, and she gave me the strangest look. I ran up to her, I was like, "Hi," and she looked at me so awkward and uncomfortably, and she hugged me, like barely hugged me back, and she was like, "Have a good day," and then she took off and left, and I was like, "That's weird." And then a week later, she's writing from an email address that's. That
and your relationship with Cassie was strained too.
Oh yeah,
we had a Halloween party.
It always was. Oh yeah, that was weird.
And she showed up, but you were like, I haven't talked to her in a long time. And and your dad got into a fight with somebody that night. And she actually was like trying to calm your dad down, and I thought that was really weird. She put her hand up to me like for me to leave, and I was like, I'm not going anywhere. And I was still so clueless. And here's another revelation that I had after the fact. He created a Facebook account, which he never was interested in Facebook before that, but he created one.
And he started dressing like younger. He started wearing V-necks, and she,
And he got a Facebook account, and he added her, and she started working at a sand and gravel plant that was right near his ready mix plant where he worked, and they were talking, but I still didn't think anything.
Right.
I was kind of clueless. I didn't think her. I don't know why I didn't think her. I thought everybody else, but at any rate, these were all signs. And another thing that happened that was really funny is he always had all my passwords to my email, to my Facebook, to my MySpace, all those accounts that we had. And he changed his Facebook password, and because I went on to spy on him. And I said, well, that's not right. You have all my passwords. And we had a huge fight. And then he gave me his password. The next day, I swear it was the next day or the day after, Cassie's friend Brianna posted something about, I just think it's ridiculous when couples have to have each other's passwords. And I was like thinking, what are the odds that she would post that 2 days after we had the fight? This is how clueless I am. And so I wrote underneath her thing, I wrote a comment like, people who have nothing to hide nothing. And then she wrote, oh yeah, it has nothing to do with anything, just a general comment. And I was like, she's acting weird. Like, this is how dumb I was.
Right.
I don't know. It was like slapping me in the face, but I was like being clueless. So after getting the email.
But it's all really gross, though, if you think about it.
Because it's gross. She was 23.
Yeah, but at the time when he met her, she was 15, or 16. And I just think that's, it's just gross.
And she called him uncle, but I guess it doesn't matter. But at any rate, so then.
It just goes to show how manipulative and how he's grooming.
Oh yeah,
he had a grooming behaviors. It's just gross.
Oh, for sure he did. For sure he did. Yeah, he would fill people out to see who he could get away with stuff. Yeah, for sure. Because one of the other people I accused him of on the lie detector, it did seem like he was trying to groom her, and she didn't fall for it. And
the other person,
and he passed on one person out of all the people I asked him.
Right.
So now I have this information, and I know that her cousin, and one other thing you said too about it, when you found out that her cousin was the one who wrote to me, you said, oh, well, by the way, the people who do call her Cassandra are her family.
Yeah.
And
I remember that.
So it all kind of linked up, right?
I know, and saying that right in front of you guys while you're fighting and both looking at me, I remember gasping and being like, it's her cousin. And I showed you, and he just gave me the dirtiest look, and I was like, oh my God.
Well, and what was funny about it, or not funny, but what was weird about it is I got so used to his like defenses and his defense mechanisms and the way he acted and responded to me during fights about things that it didn't faze me. But then I overheard you talking on the phone to Casey, your cousin, about it, and you were saying, my dad was acting so weird, and this is what he was saying, and this is what he was doing. And I was like, is that weird? Because that's what he's always done. You know? And to me, it was like I got so used to his defenses that I thought it was normal. You know, but you were the first time seeing it and realizing that he was full of it. Like you picked up on it, and I didn't really pick up on it because I was numb to it at that point, unfortunately. I became very numb to it.
And hoping things to get better. You're kind of looking the other way in a way, like people do sometimes.
Well, and then if it's just flirting, what do you do, really? Like,
right,
it's like, are you going to divorce somebody because they flirted with somebody?
You don't have concrete evidence of something. You almost feel like you don't know for sure. You want to know for sure before it gets to that point. But it's almost like Stockholm syndrome, because you've been into the relationship with him for so long, and he's been abusive during most of it. I mean, you have a metal plate in your leg because he hurt you.
That was from the skating accident.
No, the other time.
No, my knee is messed up.
Your knee has what happened to it again? You're torn.
He popped it out. Yeah, my ligaments are loose,
and it still messes up all the time because of that. Yeah, right. But and he's also he's just done a lot of things to you that I remember. That was the worst, because I remember you screaming and running downstairs and then running away.
Yeah, that was awful. It was a bad day.
And then you telling me call the police, and him trying to convince me not to by saying, "Oh, baby girl, your daddy loves you. I don't want to go to jail. Don't send me back to jail. If you call the cops, I'm going to go to jail." And I'm just sitting there, and he's crying and holding you, and you're trying to push him off you and screaming and crying and like, "You call 911." And I'm like, "What do I do?" And he's manipulating me even then.
Yeah. And I see why you ran, but then I was worried about you on top of everything else,
Well, then I called your sister first because I knew she would come there right away, and she did. But that's right before I ran. Then I ran. I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. This is scary.
Yeah,
and then I had to lie for you.
And that fight was nothing. It was literally, we were fighting over nothing. He started a random weird fight with me, and keep that in mind, people who are listening. If somebody starts a random fight with you and starts accusing you of things that you haven't done, typically it's because they're doing something. We don't have a lot of time left, but I will go back into the story maybe next week, and we'll talk about the lie detector and how bizarre it is to have a lie detector test.
And they're not always 100% accurate, but the person who did the test did it over and over and over, and also had them lie on it to see the differences in the...
and he didn't let us leave the room. We had to stay in the room together. He was very
he was
transparent. He wanted it to be very transparent, because he said sometimes the person, if somebody doesn't want the other spouse to know what they're doing, they will try to pay him off. He said it happens a lot, that they'll try to pay him off. So he let us sit in the room together, and you could see the needle going up. You could see it. But okay, so we're just going to wrap up and say thank you for listening, and please follow us on Facebook at Dying to Get Well. We're still working on our webpage. It's coming out very nicely. And also keep in mind that there is an organization, Kids with Kindness. You can add them on Facebook at Kids with Kindness or Kids with...
2.3 FM, Riverside, KCAA.